If you grew up in the 2000s and early 2010s, chances are that you might have seen this aesthetic called superflat pop. It was common from the 2000s and early 2010s, where kawaii-like visuals and cartoony aesthetics were everywhere during this time. I made an iceberg surrounding this aesthetic because I find it to be a very underrated aesthetic from the 2000s. Long story short, for those don't know what an iceberg is, the image you are seeing is an iceberg with topics relating to the topic of the iceberg, and the more deeper the topic is at the bottom, the more obscure and sometimes airy the topics are. I made this iceberg and posted over on the r/superflatpop subreddit. Without further ado, let's begin this iceberg. Before we start, this video might be split into parts. This video is unscripted, which means this video will be a bit messy, but I will try to clarify at some moments. Lastly, we will not be talking about any criticism or controversial topics relating to superflat pop, which I will have to note in some places. Takashi Murakami is the creator of Superflat and is the reason of what this aesthetic is based on. He was responsible of all of his works, his mascot characters like Mr. Dob, Kai Kai, and Kiki, and most importantly his iconic flower design. Tokidoki is a brand founded sometime in the mid-2000s, and the art style of the brand has superflat pop visuals. You might seen a lot of Tokidoki stuff in stores. The brand is still going and it's still popular to this day. They have designed a mascot which you will see later. There is this show called Mermicorno Starfall based on the Mermicornos from Tokidoki's brand. The Sanrio company is responsible and well known for creating Hello Kitty, My Melody, Cinnamoroll, Keroppi, Bad Bats Maru, and more. Because of the kawaii visuals they are here in this iceberg, but it could also play in the role of superflat pop in the aesthetic. Fun fact, they currently own the rights to the Mr. Men franchise, and in Japan only Sanrio have the licensing rights to the Peanuts franchise, which is very interesting. Murakami crossover with Louis Vuitton promotion was a collaboration with Murakami and the fashion company Louis Vuitton, well known for their brown bags with their design on them. Murakami's crossover decided to add his own art into the collab and create a logo design based on the Louis Vuitton logo. The pattern from Louis Vuitton remained the same, but now with it being white instead of brown and having the pattern colorful. There are two superflat Louis Vuitton shorts to promote the crossover. One that was made in 2003 called Superflat Monogram, which the girl character shown in the short looked like they would be in Digimon and Summer Wars, which actually is because Mamoru Hosoda directed this, but it seemed like he wasn't credited in that short. And the other one is Superflat First Love in 2009, which was fully CGI instead of having some CGI and 2D elements. There was even a recent pop-up store of Superflat Louis Vuitton. The official Louis Vuitton YouTube channel uploaded the shorts on YouTube so you can watch them. However, it seems like they upscaled with AI, but I think there is one that is high quality with the AI upscale. Before Kanye West became controversial recently, he released the album Graduation, and the album cover is another one of Murakami's collaborations with someone. In fact, the Dropout Bear debuted in 2003, but was redesigned by Murakami himself. Despite that, the Good Morning music video is considered to be superflat pop. However, I couldn't download the video due to copyright, so I have to download an old FYE advertisement for the visuals. Also, Murakami would also keep working for Kanye until Kids See Ghosts. Also unrelated to Kanye, Murakami teamed up with Billie Eilish, but I didn't know where to put this in the iceberg. As mentioned earlier, superflat pop has kawaii visuals, which is mostly the main theme of this aesthetic, but despite the kawaii visuals, the aesthetic relies on geometric shapes, colorful palettes, and thick outlines for the most part. If you want to see some more superflat pop examples, then check out the CARI website, and Evan Collins' arena page of superflat pop. There is also the Aesthetics Wiki too, with the superflat pop page, which I also like to contribute to that page. So remembered when I said that Tokidoki created a mascot? Well, here it is. This is Luce, the mascot of the 2025 Jubilee in the Catholic Church. Yes, that's right, this is an actual mascot for the Catholic Church. Luce was designed by Simone Legno, an artist over on Tokidoki. Luce has friends, so she isn't alone. Luce became viral after its release in the public. If you ask me, it's interesting how Superflatpop's visual art style can make it to religion. Cartoon Network is a channel owned by Warner Bros. Discovery, but what we are here for is the shows. Despite some of Cartoon Network's shows might not count as Superflatpop, a few shows from Cartoon Network that has elements of Superflatpop. There will be some Cartoon Network shows on the Iceberg, but for now, some elements of Superflatpop shows up on Cartoon Network. If you ask me, Cartoon Network in the 2000s has the most Superflatpop shows. The reason why it's on the Iceberg is because Cartoon Network might have influenced Superflatpop, including shows like Dexter's Laboratory and Powerpuff Girls in later seasons. However, Cartoon Network seemed to have better days because of Cartoon Network doesn't have their new original ideas. But maybe one day Cartoon Network might have another CN renaissance if they are lucky. Speaking of Cartoon Network, the Nudes era was a rebrand of Cartoon Network which featured these figures called the Nudes that aired on Cartoon Network from 2008 to 2010 before the Check It era. This was a team-up with Cartoon Network, Capacity, and Kid Robot. Cartoon Network in Latin America would reuse the Nudes concept called Tunics, which will show up later in the Iceberg. They also have this color blocks and blobs which can change the color of the Nudes and sometimes can cosplay as Cartoon Network characters. Fun fact, the Nudes showed up in a cameo on a Cartoon Network Check It era bumper, the Nose one. They also appeared in OKKO's Crossover Nexus episode. In my headcanon, after when Cartoon Network having problems in the city, everyone left and the Nudes and Tunics live there in the city. Sorry, unrelated, but I wanted to think that being my headcanon for CN City and the Nudes. Funny enough, in Crossover Nexus the blank Tunics can be shown in one of the backgrounds and the Nudes also shows up in Crossover Nexus CN City. As mentioned earlier, Murakami's flower design was everywhere and became an icon for his works. The icon consists 12 colorful petals, sometimes rainbow or one color, with a cute happy face inside with a huge open mouth smile and shiny little eyes which can be colorful. Sometimes the flowers can have a different emotion. They can sometimes be sad, closing their eyes and mouth but still having a happy face and more. Here the Murakami flowers mimicking a few emoji expressions. This icon is very iconic and a staple to this aesthetic and pop culture. Adventure Time is a Cartoon Network show that focuses on Finn and Jake. The show can be considered to be Superflatpop, and it is one of Cartoon Network's iconic 2010s shows, along with it being on the CN Renaissance. Oh come on TTS, stop pronouncing Renaissance wrong. I hate weird limits like this, sorry. Just like Adventure Time, The Amazing World of Gumball is another iconic CN 2010s show that focuses on Gumball and Darwin, and their family. The show has a huge mixed media art style and some elements of Superflatpop is present in many characters and the show as well. A reboot of the show is on its way. Yo Gabba Gabba is a preschool TV series that aired on Nick Jr. in 2007. Despite no longer a part of Nick Jr., you can watch the show on YouTube. The show is about DJ Lance bringing Munyo, Pro B, Fufa, 2D, and Plex to life. This show has some Superflatpop elements. There was a crossover with Yo Gabba Gabba in the Fresh Beat Band in one episode. The show got rebooted as Yo Gabba Gabba Land, which is hosted by Cameron Smith this time. There was a lot of Yo Gabba Gabba guest stars from the show. Also before Yo Gabba Gabba, there was an earlier version of the show Yo Gabba in 2004, and as you can see how rough it was, which was before a pilot was made, which just shows how far the show has developed. This show was my and everyone else's childhoods that watched the show. Katamari Damacy is a video game released for the PS2 in 2004. It's when the king of all cosmos destroyed all of the stars including the moon. You play as the prince, the king's son, and you have to roll everything into the Katamari, which is a ball where it sticks things and it collected. The bigger you Katamari, the more stuff you can collect, such as big things that would be harder for you to get. After that, the king turns it into a star to restore the missing stars the king destroyed. The game was successful and Namco released a sequel called We Love Katamari, which improves all of Katamari Damacy's flaws. It became a series with many games and spin-offs. The first 2 games have been remastered on all platforms. I recommend this game since it's so much fun. Also, I have We Love Katamari Reroll and I enjoyed this game, and We Love Katamari is my favorite. Also, the OST has a lot of bangers. In fact, I played one before the main theme of Katamari Damacy playing. Wow Wow Wubbzy is a TV series that focuses on Wubbzy and his friends Widget and Walden, and later Daisy in Season 2. The show used to air on Nick Jr. and Noggin in 2006. The show was created by Bob Boyle, which worked on The Fairly Odd Parents. Bob Boyle would make Yin Yang Yo, a show that aired on Jetix, which will show up later on the Iceberg. Speaking of Jetix, Puka was made by a South Korean company called Vu's Character System. Puka would get an animated series on Jetix in 2006, which the series was animated in both Canada and South Korea. Puka would get a CGI reboot in 2018 and the reboot was done in South Korea. However, I heard that Puka got hacked and someone else is wanting to use the Puka IP for crypto project. That really sucks, but I hope this gets resolved soon since it got out of hand. Tamagotchi is a digital pet that was released by Bandai. It was an iconic toy from the 90s. You take care of your Tamagotchi. Tamagotchi later got a redesign and it is considered Superflatpop. Tamagotchi had evolved over the years, but Bandai Namco releases the classic Tamagotchi. Nihao Kailan is a TV series on Nick Jr. that focuses on Kailan, which lives with her grandfather Yi, and she has friends like Rintu, Tali, Ho-Ho and Lulu. The show teaches children about social skills, and similar to Dora, they both break the fourth wall to talk to the viewers. But unlike Dora, Nihao Kailan teaches children about Chinese culture and the Mandarin Chinese language. The show's art style has a kawaii art style. Also, fun fact, the show started as shorts on Nick Jr.'s My World segment called Downward Doghouse, which had a different art style compared to the final, and Ho-Ho in the shorts didn't fully talk and spoke gibberish instead. Pocoyo is a Spanish preschool cartoon that focuses on a little boy named Pocoyo and his friends, Ellie, Pato, and Lula the dog. The show used to air on Nick Jr. in America and Cartoonito America at one point, and the show was bundled with Peep and the Big Wide World after when their show was over, and later reruns on some PBS stations and later PBS Kids. The show was animated by Zinkyo Entertainment and now animated by Animage or Anima. I don't know how to pronounce it. Oddly, the first few seasons was done by Cosgrove Hall Films and ITV Granada, making it British before the show became a fully Spanish production. The show also added Nina and Roberto, which they would show up in episodes. The Persona series is a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, but what we are here for is Persona 4, which is the fourth Persona game in the series. There are some Superflatpop elements, but it seems to be leaning more into Frutiger Metro instead of Superflatpop, despite that there are some Superflatpop elements in the graphic design. Also, Teddy might consider to be a Superflatpop character in terms of design. Rhythm Heaven, or for you Europeans Rhythm Paradise, is a rhythm game that was released by Nintendo. It was first released as Rhythm Tengoku on the GBA in Japan, and the DS game was when the series made it to the West. Nintendo released Rhythm Heaven Fever on the Wii or Beat the Beats Rhythm Paradise, and Mega Mix for the 3DS. However, Mega Mix was a eShop exclusive in the US, which I will never forgive Nintendo for that, but I did have to find other means to get the game. The game got a cult following and people makes custom remixes of songs and fan games inspired by Rhythm Heaven. Why else we get games like Melatonin and Bits and Bops. Y2K Futurism, formerly called as the Y2K aesthetic before it turned into a Y2K aesthetic bubble, is aesthetic common from the late 90s and early 2000s. I love this aesthetic because of its cool futuristic look. Y2K Futurism also have aesthetics like Gen X Soft Club, Vector Heart, and Metal Heart. This aesthetics was basically when everyone was excited for the new millennium at the time. It's also where it's called the Y2K aesthetic, named after the Y2K bug, which was a panic because computers weren't able to understand the year 2000, which could have caused a huge problem, but thankfully that didn't happen and everyone was safe. However, due to tragic events in 2001, the aesthetic had died down throughout the rest of the early 2000s. But at least it looked pretty cool even from at the time. Y2K Futurism felt really fresh. I think the out of Y2K Futurism would later transition into Superflat Pop due to its similarities and some of it having thicker outlines and vector art styles. I don't think this aesthetic needs an introduction, but Frutiger Aero was a common aesthetic from the mid-2000s to early 2010s, which had glossy textures, nature, bokeh, bubbles, and skeuomorphism. It was everywhere in tech like the Nintendo Wii, Windows Vista and Windows 7, etc. The aesthetic was replaced by boring flat design and corporate Memphis. The aesthetic has gotten so popular in recent years because of the Gen Z kids growing up with this tech aesthetic. Superflat Pop seems to also overlap with Frutiger Aero, so that's why it's here. Frutiger Metro is basically flat design, but if it had detail and if had more effort into it. In fact, this is way better than flat design in general. The aesthetic uses a lot of silhouettes of people, speakers, music notes, plants like flowers, stars, targets, and etc. It seems to be an evolution to Vector Bloom and Vector Flourish. There is this YouTube channel called No Loon, which seems to be a bit of an ARG, and it uses Frutiger Metro for their new jeans edits. Just like Frutiger Aero, this aesthetic got popular because of nostalgia. Funky Seasons, or known as Four Colors, is an aesthetic from the 2000s, which the colors seem to be popular in Japan. It was named after the four-color palette, and the season of what the color corresponds of what season. The colors are blue for winter, pink for spring, being cherry blossoms, green for summer, and orange for fall/autumn. It also overlaps with bright tertiaries, which uses this color palette from most of the 2010s, and it also overlaps with Frutiger Aero, Frutiger Metro, and of course Superflat Pop.